Okay, we got about 45 minutes. We're going to let you guys get out of here. If you remember earlier, I was talking about the 31 truths. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you guys a chance to download my free ebook on the 31 truths. And honestly, these 31 truths I created because I think a lot. Have you guys figured that out? I think a lot. And I started to think about, what makes a person really successful? And, being a thought leader, you got to think. And I just took some time and I thought about entertainers, I thought about athletes, I thought about entrepreneurs, business leaders, and I just kind of considered in totality, what are the 31 truths? And I came up with 31 to boost peak performance. I'm only going to do 9 today because I don't have time to do all 31. But I'm sure you will agree with me, and I'm going to give you my ebook for free, that when you get all 31 truths, here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about all of the highly successful people that you respect. And think about them in relationship to these 31 truths. And what you're going to find is that person is operating at a high level in a lot of these 31 truths. So it's almost like this program is really teaching people how to operate in order to have high levels of success. Does that make sense? Okay, so truth number 1 that I have found in politicians, I've found in entertainers. I've done a program with Bill Clinton where we brought him in to be our keynote speaker. I spent a whole day with Bill Clinton. I spent a whole day with Patrick Doyle, the CEO of Domino's. Obviously I've been around Jerry Sloan, Karl Malone, John Stockton. I've gotten a chance as a motivational speaker. I always deal with the CEO of every company that I speak for. And so this composite that I'm going to give you today is not just from an athletic standpoint. This is about reaching human potential. We feel like we're on the verge of cracking the code of teaching people how to operate at a high level, okay? So here's truth number 1. All peak performers in business have a clear vision. So my question for you right now is, what is your vision for your professional career? In other words, we did this in 3rd grade. The teacher would ask us, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? Remember that? Here's the problem. When we get about 23, 24, people say, oh, you need to be realistic. And all of a sudden, we live in this world where people act like dreams don't come true anymore. I'm here to tell you that I am living the life right now at 47 years old. I am living the life to the T of the vision I had when I was about 13 years old. I wanted to play pro sports. My dilemma was which one. I was a very good football player. I was a tight end, and if I touched it, I caught it, and I loved to block. I'm 6'5", 300 pounds. It wouldn't take me much to get in shape and to be a 260-pound tight end. I could have played on Sundays. I was a very good baseball player. In high school, I batted .500. I was named after my uncle who played Major League Baseball. At 24, I had a workout with the Twins. The Minnesota Twins said, man, if you were younger, we'd do something. My dilemma was, what sport do I choose? I was gifted by God to play sports. If you are fighting with your AAU coach for playing time with your kid, you need to stop. It just means that your kid is not gifted as an athlete. At 12 years old, the argument around me was Walter Bond's too old. Check his birth certificate. He's too old. He's not 12. I was MVP of a league in Chicago's inner city, and the GM came to me and said, you know what, Walter, I'm not going to be mad. You won the championship. You're the MVP. But tell me the truth. How old are you really? I'm like, dude, I'm 12. What they didn't realize is that they were watching a future NBA player. I was gifted. So at 47, guys, I am living the dream that I had when I got asked by that teacher, what do you want to be when you grow up? My biggest challenge was I wanted to make more money in business than I did in sports. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm doing it. Only because I have a clear vision. I've always known exactly what I wanted to do. You have kids, those kids that go to college and they know exactly what they want to be. they tend to do a little bit better than the other kids. Some kids go to college and say, I want to be a doctor, and they get right on that track. Some kids say, I want to be a lawyer. They get right on that track. The other kids that aren't sure, have you noticed? They kind of hum and haw and bounce around only because they don't have a clear vision. So my question for you as a professional, what is your vision? You might be in charge of beverage. You might be in charge of the food service. You might be a GM of a club right now, and you might say, Walter, you know what? I want a bigger club. I don't know. It's your vision. But what I do know, peak performers have a clear vision. They know exactly what they want to do. They know exactly what they want to be. So if I were you, don't think about your country club right now. Be selfish right now and basically ask yourself the question, who do I want to become when I grow up? And you got to be able to answer that question to yourself. And once you have that answer, don't you quit until you get there. Now, as a professional at your country club, if you are in a leadership position, you should have a clear vision for your club. In other words, what niche is your club going to fit? And I'm telling you, I don't care what kind of company it is, if you don't have a clear vision, it's going to be very difficult for your country club or for your tennis club to stand out. Now, the example that I give for a clear vision is Federal Express. Federal Express made a decision years ago, and I can't think of the founder's name, but he was in college. He wrote a thesis about packages being sent overnight, how the postal system is not efficient. And I do a Wikipedia. I did research on this guy. I'm sorry I'm blowing it right now on his name. But Federal Express was a vision. Somebody get the name and get it to me. And I'll say, oh, shoot. Yeah, that was his name. Fred Smith. He was a college kid. He had a clear vision of what he could do with overnight packaging. And would you agree that Federal Express changed the game for companies and businesses and how the postal system should work? My goodness, his clear vision separated him. So my question for you, if you're not happy where you are, it's because you don't have clear vision. It's not politics. It's nobody else's fault. It's because you don't have clear vision or clarity on what you want to do with your career. Or if your country club is kind of middle of the pack, middle of the road, and you're frustrated and you don't want, get a clear vision. Get a new board. Get something that's exciting, and here's why. Clear vision looks like this. My wife and I lived in Minnesota for a long time. I'm from Chicago. We would road trip to go and see my mom and dad often. We had the minivan with the movie thing in the back. Me and my wife knew it was 2 movies and a nap. We're in Chicago. When we put those kids in the car when they were 2 or 3 years old, 5 years old, what did they ask us all the way to Chicago? Are we there yet? When my kids were really young, they would ask the question before we left the neighborhood. Sometimes I wanted to say, are you some kind of stupid? We're still in the freaking neighborhood. But I couldn't say that. That wouldn't be a good dad. So I had to say, no, honey, we just left, but it's a 7-hour drive, and we'll let you know as we get closer. But the excitement that our kids had, because they knew we were going somewhere exciting. And all they wanted to know was, are we there yet? How close are we? They would fall asleep and wake up. Are we there yet? They'd watch a movie and totally engage in Space Jam. Oh my God, I love Space Jam. My kids have seen Space Jam about 50 times. We can always count on Space Jam. But all the way to Chicago, when they thought about it, Mom, I gotta use the bathroom. Are we there yet? My kids got excited about the journey because they knew we were headed somewhere exciting. That's why your country club needs a clear vision, so all of your employees can get excited. When you do a quarterly meeting, all it should be is an update. Your employees should know where you're going. And when you do your meeting, they should be able to say, hey, Mr. GM, are we there yet? With our revenue, are we there yet? With our capacity, are we there yet? With our customer service reviews, are we there yet? See, if you don't have a clear vision for your country club, you have employees who come to work every day with no purpose. They come to work every day. What do you do? I just work at the country club. What do you do? I'm just a golf attendant. I just clean shoes and yeah, just every day. I'm getting tired of it, just every day. But if you have a vision for your country club that they know about and they're aware of, you allow your employees to get excited because they're a part of something that's being built and they can get excited by it. If you don't have a clear vision for your country club, there's no way you're communicating that to your employees, and that's going to lead to poor engagement, and that's going to lead to high turnover, and that's going to lead to attrition, which could lead to you losing your job. If I were you at this conference, get somewhere quiet and get a clear vision about your own personal career, but most importantly, get a clear vision of where you want to take your country club if you have the capacity to do so. If you're in charge of food and beverage, hey, get a vision for food and beverage. Get a vision for everything that you see fit in your own ability to manage or lead. Does that make sense to anybody? I mean, how in the world can you go to work excited if you don't know where you're going? Just a couple of days ago, a fellow peer of mine got on a plane with me. You guys got to understand, I'm a Hall of Fame speaker. But this guy's a peer, and he's building a company. And all of a sudden, I realized, I don't like what you're doing. And I got a new vision just 2 days ago. I got to build a company. I want a company with equity. I want a company that I can sell. It's no longer about me gloating that I'm not the NBA guy who went broke. Enough of that, it's over with. I want to build a company that I can build equity in and I can sell that will live on beyond me. So just 2 days ago, my wife and I got a new vision, so I can't wait to drop off my kids in 10 days. There's nothing wrong with you recalibrating your vision as your professional career, but most importantly, what is the vision for your country club? Peak performers have a clear vision. You better believe before Jay-Z picked up a microphone, he saw himself rapping in front of 80,000. Before Beyonce threw a concert, she saw it. Before Hillary and Bill started politics, they saw it. You go down the line of whoever you respect or honor in business, politics, entertainment, it begins and ends with clear vision. Because without a vision, people, you guys don't know that one? Without a vision, people perish. It's powerful, isn't it? That's the truth. All peak performers have a clear vision. In fact, Michael Jordan, I made reference to him earlier. Remember those 2 years he tried baseball? He got distracted by a good idea. Well, I take that back. He got distracted by a bad idea. I mean, think about it. Even if he had the ability to play at the major league level, he didn't have the time to develop the skill set to get there. Does that make sense? He started trying to play baseball at what, 28, 29? That's not respectful to these other Major League Baseball players who've been working on playing in the major leagues, hitting a 98-mile-per-hour baseball. As good as an athlete as Michael Jordan was, he didn't have the time to become a Major League Baseball player. But here's the good news. He woke up one morning and said, what in the heck am I doing? He got back to his original vision, and he reclaimed his position as the best in the world. I'm telling you, professionals, you need to have a clear vision, and you need to teach your children to have a clear vision. Because if they have clarity of what they want to do when they grow up, they'll become exactly that. Key number 2, peak performers are committed to an industry. Now, I coach a lot of professionals. I coach professionals in Australia. We coach professionals in London. We've been coaching professionals for a long time. And one thing that I have seen, and it breaks my heart, I have 50, 60-year-old business guys call me and say, Walter, I'm frustrated. And I say, okay, well, how can I help you? I'm frustrated with where I am as a professional. Well, okay, tell me about your career. Well, you know, I started out in insurance. Did that for 4 or 5 years, hated it. Then I went to nonprofit for 4 or 5 years, and then I did this for 4 or 5 years, then I tried that for 4 or 5 years, and now I'm at the country club, and I'm thinking about making another move. Here's a simple analogy I want you to get. My wife and I bought a house in Minnesota, 2 acres, and the back of the property, I couldn't figure out why the house I bought had the biggest lot, but it had the cheapest price. Baffled me. Couldn't figure it out. I got the biggest lot in the neighborhood, had the cheapest price. Long story short, the way the neighborhood was excavated, the back of my yard gets all the water from all 60 acres of this development. Got the biggest lot, but every time it rained, it was a complete nightmare in my backyard. The whole neighborhood loaded off into me. I'm a positive guy. I'm going to turn lemons into lemonade. I went to the landscaper and said, hey man, I got a problem. I got a bunch of water, and I want to create a privacy wall in the back of my home with a bunch of trees. What tree do you recommend? He said, well, Walter, I got 1 tree and 1 tree only for you. You need willows. Because willow trees love water, and the more water you give them, the better they are. There's no other tree for you to plant but willow trees. Sure enough, in Minnesota, it is freezing by the end of October. I waited patiently until the nursery was just about closed, and they had all of their willow trees on sale. We got to that nursery and said, look, I want to buy 30 willow trees. How much? They kept marking down the price because they couldn't keep these trees through the winter. So I bought 28 willow trees in early November, late October. Planted them all, everything's fine. Spring comes around, rain comes and goes. These willow trees are flourishing, growing like crazy. Perfect choice. They're just drinking up this water, so I don't have this huge flooding zone in my backyard. And all of a sudden, within 6 years, I have a row of 28 willow trees that were beautiful. When we put our home on the market, we gave them a little bob haircut. And my goodness, when people came to look at our house, they were like, oh my God, this looks like the Ritz-Carlton. You got the pool, you got privacy. I love those willow trees. Those willow trees flourished. Now, at the same time, my grandmother said, you know what, I want to buy you a tree in memory of me. We bought a tree for my grandmother, a pear tree. And we planted the pear tree at the same time as the willows. But when we planted the pear tree, we reconfigured some of our landscaping, and after 2 or 3 years, we moved the pear tree once. So as I'm watching these willows take off, I kept my eye on that pear tree. Willows are growing like crazy. That pear tree didn't appear to grow at all because we moved it one time. So I go back to the landscaper. He says, how's those willows doing? Those willows are fantastic. But my pear tree's not growing. He says, well, where's you planted? In a shaded area, just like you said. Well, I had to do something. That pear tree is not going to grow like a willow, but there's no reason why the pear tree shouldn't be growing the way it should grow. And I said, you know, we did move it once. Ha! You moved it. That's why the pear tree's not growing. I said, well, what do you mean? Do you know when you move a tree, the root system goes into shock? And the likelihood of that tree even surviving the move is slim. And even if it survives the move, the chances of that tree thriving is slim because you moved it. See, if you're not committed to an industry, you throw your whole future in the shop. I'm here to tell you, I started playing basketball when I was 8 years old. And I stayed committed to that industry. And when I got to about 18, someone saw me worthy for a scholarship. 12 years later, and 5 years after that, someone saw me worthy to be a pro and pay me cash money to play in the NBA. Does that make sense to anybody? So I say all that to say this. I wanted to give you a parable. I wanted to give you a metaphor. Peak performers are committed to an industry. How long has Aretha Franklin been singing? She can do a concert if she's sick. She can do a concert with her eyes closed. This woman has been performing for decades. Now, whether you like Bill or Hillary Clinton, I'm not a political guy, to be honest with you. Because as far as I'm concerned, I don't care who's president, I'm going to grind. I was born and raised a Democrat because that's what you do in the city, but then I started making money, and all of a sudden I understand the Republican perspective. So politically, I don't know what I am. But what I do know is that Bill and Hillary Clinton have been in politics a long, long time. And since they've been in politics a long, long time, there is so much that they have learned about politics. Are you hearing what I'm saying? Because they got into that arena and they stayed pat. How long has Pat Riley been in basketball? I mean, he was a basketball star at Kentucky back when Kentucky was segregated. So now Pat Riley is a well-respected executive with the Miami Heat, winning championships with the Miami Heat. But my goodness, how long has that man been in basketball? He's been in basketball probably 55 years. He has forgotten more about basketball than I'll ever know. Do you see Pat Riley trying to go sell insurance? Do you see him trying to go run a nonprofit? I say all that to say professionals who are peak performers are committed to an industry. I'm teaching my kids that right now. My kids are 21, 19, and 17. I'm teaching them now. You think about it long and hard. What you want to be and what you want to do. Because you cannot keep jumping around industries, because if you do, you're going to be just like that tree. Every time you jump around an industry, your future goes into shock. Peak performers are committed to an industry. I say all that because sometimes country clubs are one of those industries that people try out. Am I telling the truth? Oh, we'll just see how it goes. Yeah, majors in hospitality, we'll just see. And if you want to thrive in any industry, peak performers are committed to an industry. Any questions? Does that make sense? You know, I still go to my old home when I'm in town just to go look at my willows. That's all I go back to just look at my willows, because those willows are perfect. They're thriving because I planted them once and I left them alone. Look at your landscaping. Go look at some old pictures. You'll say, man, remember that tree? Man, remember that bush? Oh my God, remember that? All of your landscape develops. Why? Because you leave it alone. Your career will develop as well if you stay planted and leave it alone. That message might not have just been for you. That message can be for your children. That message could be for some of your employees. Always use the tree analogy. It's a parable that everyone understands, and it's a parable that everyone gets. And I love going back home to Chicago and some of those old neighborhoods. What happens when that oak tree meets the concrete? What happens? Who wins? Who wins? That oak tree, when that root begins to grow and develop, and it meets that concrete has to move. So if you get stable and planted in this industry, when the storm comes, you'll still be planted. Does that make sense? All right, enough said. Truth number 3. Here's something else that I love about peak performers. Here's something else that I understand about peak performers. Here's something that all peak performers possess. They desire to improve. I've never met a peak performer that works at a high level who's comfortable staying the same. All right? Golden State lost this year. They won last year, remember? They lost this year. what did they do in the offseason? Did they say, well, you know, hey, everybody can't win a championship? I mean, we did win in 2015. You know, we're going to give somebody else a try. Man, they were freaking pissed off. And so they went out and landed the most coveted free agent in basketball. Did Golden State stand back and just be content with getting to the championship? No, they want to win the championship, which means they desire to improve. Here, I'm going to give you a little bit of a secret. I wrote a book for financial advisors, and I do trainings for business leaders. It's called The Off Season. I'm going to blow your mind right now. Pro athletes have an off season, why not you? When I left sports and got into the real world, I was corporate just like you. I went to Starbucks and got my coffee just like you. Could I have a vanilla almond latte soy, 96 degrees, please, no foam? I had my briefcase just like you. I had my smartphone just like you. I'm trying to be corporate. And about 3 years in, I gained weight. I was lethargic. I didn't feel confident. Something I lost. And I went to my wife and I said, babe, I realized something. She says, what? I need an off season. What do you mean? Well, in sports, you compete for like 5, 6, 7 months. And then you get 5 months off. Your off season is where you get bigger, stronger, and faster. You guys heard my story. In my off season, that's where I made my move. In my off season is where I lost 10 pounds, where I gained 10 pounds. In my off season is when I improved the food program, where I improved the beverage program, where I improved the golf course. At St. Andrews right now, they're redoing the whole golf course. At St. Andrews right now, just picking up conversation at the bar, they just hired a bunch of people from a very successful restaurant to come and take over the 19th hole. They just started August 1st. This part of the country, Palm Beach County, you get a bunch of snowbirds. So in that season, when the club kind of empties out, it's a perfect time to take an off season and improve the club. See, pro athletes in the off season, that's where you get bigger, that's where you get stronger, and that's where you get faster. So when I left sports and got into the real world, I began to realize that people don't take off seasons. Here's how we grew our company fast. We took off seasons. We slowed down from Thanksgiving to the New Year. And my wife and I took an off season. We looked at our website, we looked at our copy, we looked at our sales strategy, we looked at our sales process, we looked at our positioning, we looked at our niche, and all of a sudden, we came up with strategies on how to update and upgrade everything about our business. We've been doing off seasons for 15 years, and people come to me and say, man, dude, you're always changing. You're always improving. You're always getting better. Absolutely, because I'm still an athlete in heart. So here's my question for you. Do you desire to improve? Or you just want to stay the same? And here's a funny thing I get out of fans. Fans are very encouraging. They would come to the ball game and say encouraging things to us, like this. Bond, you suck! Box out, get a rebound, soak it up, get tough. Some of your country clubs had draft parties because people wanted to get excited to see who the Cowboys drafted. Some of you guys are into college football and you want to see what kind of recruiting class that Florida had, what kind of recruiting class that Florida State have, you know? Can they still bring a man like Bobby Bowden, man? We got to fix recruiting, man. We got to get recruiting down there in Georgia, man. Rick couldn't get it done. I mean, he was good, but he wasn't great. He should have gotten his butt fired. I mean, he was good, but he wasn't great. That's fine. But my question is to you. Are you okay just being good? Or do you want to be great? Peak performers desire to improve. Peak performers cannot stay the same. You better believe right now, even though LeBron won the championship, you better believe he's in the laboratory somewhere working on something. Guarantee it. Why? Because today he came out and made a statement and said, I'm chasing a ghost. I'm chasing a ghost that used to play in Chicago. LeBron says it'd be neat to be considered the best player of all time. I'm chasing a ghost, and I'm filling the name. His name is Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan won 6 championships. LeBron has 3. And LeBron knows, man, if I can get to 6, maybe I can be considered the best of all time. Maybe I can knock Michael Jordan off his perch. If you pay attention, every now and then Michael Jordan shoots a jab. Why? Because he's a little insecure that someone might take over his throne of the greatest of all time. And LeBron is the only person I've seen in modern day basketball who has the talent, the mental makeup, and the ability to have the audacity to think he can supplant Michael Jordan. Kobe tried it, came up short. He tried, came up short. So if LeBron James, who's a peak performer, can improve, everybody in this ballroom can improve, would you agree? But peak performers desire to improve. So here's what I want you to write down right now. What is your power of two? Every year, as a company, there's two things we focus on to improve. In many cases, we diagnose a lot of things wrong, but we try to get laser-like focus on at least two things that we can improve in the next 12 months. So my question for you is, what are your two things? Is it your golf course? Is it your tennis program? Is it your tennis instructors? Is it your facilities? Is it service? When you get a survey, in many cases, your people will talk back to you. Well, Walter, they're from New York. They're freaking difficult and high maintenance. Can't listen to them. All they do is complain. But let me tell you something. If you're hearing the same complaint over and over and over again from multiple people, stop hiding behind the excuse that it's a New York City thing. Here's the good thing about country clubs. They attract successful people who understand business. And they're not nearly as crazy as you think. But here's what I do know. When I went into my coach for that postseason evaluation, when he told me I couldn't run, I couldn't jump, I couldn't dribble, I couldn't shoot, and I couldn't rebound, see, I was not offended because I already had evaluated myself. And so when I had that conversation, all he did was confirm what I already knew. See, my first 5 years in business, I asked my customers why they chose me, and I already knew my game. I studied the top motivational speakers of all time, and they have two qualities. They're very entertaining and dynamic, and they give great information. I knew that I could become a superstar speaker if I could be very entertaining and dynamic and give my audience great information. When I started speaking, I was very entertaining and dynamic and had no information. But I knew it. I knew my weaknesses. So my question is, do you know your country club's weaknesses? I mean, you would agree Superman was a bad boy until he got around kryptonite. Would you agree? So at your country club, what's your kryptonite? When someone comes on a visit, what's the resounding reason that you get as a no? What is it? Whatever you know is a recurring theme as a no, take it away. Eliminate it. Why would you have anything in your power to stop people from coming to your club and just leave it there? Take it away. Don't give anyone a reason to say no. You should be harder on yourself than your members are on you. Because here's what I know. If you're hard on yourself, life will be easy. If you're easy on yourself, life will be hard. When your country club members come to you complaining, your answer should be, I already know. We're on it. Already know. We're on it. Got it. Understand. I already know. You're right. We're working on it. And give them the why. If you can give them the why, chances are you can stop the angry mob. Would you agree? Truth number 4. This is a good one. Peak performers are experts. That's simple. Expertise is how you get paid. Here's the good news. Experts are always in high demand, and experts are always paid well. And the good news, no one can stop you from becoming an expert. Now, they say if you do anything for 10,000 hours, you will become an expert. I don't believe in that. I want to put my own little spin on it. Anything you do with passion for 10,000 hours, you can become an expert. Just doing a mundane activity over and over is not going to make you an expert. To bring passion to your job on a daily basis over time is what makes you an expert. You know, people hear me and say, Walter, you're a fantastic speaker. You know what my mentality is? I should be. I've been doing this for 15 years. I do 100 gigs a year. I should be good at what I do, right? Because I understand that when I became a professional, I should become an expert. Now, let me give you a definition of a professional. Because some of you guys say, well, these professional athletes, you know, you're getting paid, you should do this. And these professional athletes make all this money, you should do that. The definition of a professional is a person who gets paid for services rendered. So if you get paid for services rendered, please raise your hand. Or some of you guys work for free? If you get paid, raise your hand. So technically, I'm speaking to a room full of professionals, right? So you go to the ball game and you give the Marlins feedback and you give the Buccaneers feedback and you give, you know, the Devil Rays feedback and you give the Marlins feedback. You go to the ball game and you even say they're really, really good or they suck. Now, this is football season. We're about a month away, and I love football season. My favorite activity is tailgating. I'm a professional tailgater. There's not many people that can tailgate better than me. But I've never been close to the fans in my life tailgating. So I go back to Minnesota, and I tailgate. So a lot of fans come by and say, oh, my God, honey, that's Walter Bond. Oh, my God, you're my favorite freaking Gopher basketball player. Can we take a picture? Oh, my God, Walter Bond. We remember you, Walter. Say, you know what? The more I hear you talk, the more I recognize your voice. Were you in section 103 right under the basket? Yep, that's us. You told me I sucked. I heard you. So here's my fantasy. One day you come to work at your country club or golf, you know, membership deal, and when you get there, I'm in your parking lot tailgate. It's going to be a real tailgate. Jack Daniels and beer and brats and hot dogs and ribs. I'm going to invite Charles Barkley and Brett Favre because he's going to bring the Jack Daniels. And when we get a nice buzz, we're going to come into your country club, set up a bleacher, and evaluate you. You got to go to the ball game and evaluate us. I get to come to your work environment and evaluate you. We're going to be there all day. We're going to look at facilities. We're going to look at service. We're going to look at your employees. Do they smile? Are they likable? And when we leave your country club, we're going to say one or two things. We're going to say, woo, Old Palm is off the chain. Woo, Old Palm. Or we're going to leave your club and say, man, you suck. I got to the gate with no freaking security. Are you freaking kidding me? If your members knew I got through the gate without showing my ID, are you kidding me? What's your HOA? What's your POA? How much is it? You're charging people $500 a month, and you can't even stop someone from coming through the gate? You suck. People are paying for security. I travel a lot. My wife is there by herself. I'm paying for security. Boo, you suck. Peak performers are experts. So if you're going to be a GM, or if you are a GM, you should be an expert. In fact, Beth should come to you and ask you, you know what, do you mind doing a workshop for us? Seriously. As a member of the National Speakers Association, every year they call me and ask me, Walter, do you mind speaking at the conference? Do you mind doing a keynote on the platform? Do you mind doing a breakout? Because we have a lot of speakers who want to hear from you. Why? Because they see me as an expert in the speaking business, because I've gained that respect through the years. You have got to become an expert in everything you do at the highest level, because life is easy once you become an expert. When I left basketball, guys, I sat at home for 12 months. Had no money coming in. I looked at my wife and I said, babe, we got about 12 months before we go belly up. We need to figure this thing out. She said, well, Walter, what you want to do? I don't know. I had all kind of hustles going. I was doing network marketing. I had a guy who we liquidated Walmarts, and I had all kind of stuff going. I didn't say no to anything. And my wife says, honey, I want to help you, but I can't help you do 5 things. Choose one thing, and I'll help you. I made up my mind to be a motivational speaker because my coach told me to, and I went out and I got all the top motivational speakers in the business, and I watched all their video. Harvey McKay, Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, and after about 10 days, I called my wife back in the office, and I said, babe, I got some good news. She said, what? I said, we're going to be okay. She says, like a good woman, she asked me how. Women need detail, fellas. And I said, babe, I just watched Les Brown, and I think I can do what he can do. I just watched Zig Ziglar, and I can do what he can do. I just watched Tony Robbins, and I believe I can do what he can do. They're all entertaining and dynamic, and they all give you great information. If I can become entertaining and dynamic and give great information, become an expert speaker, a brand new craft, a brand new industry, I knew pick and roll. I knew how to kiss it off the backboard. I knew how to cross you over and create space. I knew how to post up. I knew how to rebound. I knew how to defend. I knew how to play big. But this motivational speaking thing, I got to become an expert in a new industry. Peak performers become experts. Final thought, and I'm going to move to the next one. I was a broadcaster for the Minnesota Timberwolves. We had to do a halftime call-in show. We had basketball nuts that could call in and ask me any question about basketball. And I was expected to answer the question. The first time I heard of Yao Ming was on the air. Someone called in and said, hey, Walter Bond, do you think Yao Ming will go #1 in the draft? You ever see broadcasters have that earpiece? The reason why you have an earpiece because you can talk to your producer who's out in the truck outside the stadium. When you see those big stadiums, they are state-of-the-art technology, and my producer, when he heard the Yao Ming question, started cursing in my ear. Oh, blank, who the heck is Yao Ming? Walter, you know who Yao Ming is? And we have a cough mic where I can talk to my producer, and people on the radio couldn't hear me. And so the guy asked me, Walter, do you think Yao Ming is going to be #1? So I got to start talking and answering the question as my producer's in my ear cursing. And I said, well, it all depends. Who is Yao Ming? Some people think that you should draft the best player available. Is he from China or Japan? Some people think that you should get your need on your team. Well, let's take a look at who is Yao Ming. Some people think that the Philadelphia 76ers have been drafting all these big guys they need. Who is Yao Ming? I wasted time talking about nothing until my guy in the truck could figure out who Yao Ming was. And in about 3 minutes, I sounded intelligent. That freaked me out. Every other question, I was an expert in basketball, but I did not know who Yao Ming was. And it taught me something very valuable. When you label yourself as an expert, you should know everything there is about a country club because you are an expert in hospitality, you are an expert in customer service, you are an expert in garbage removal, you are an expert in running a pro golf shop, you're an expert in food and beverage. If you're going to be the GM, it's like a general contractor. If you're going to build my house, you should know a little bit about drywall, electricity, how to hang it, how to mud it, how to tape it. You should understand when to get a permit, when not to get a permit. If you're going to build me a house as a general contractor, you should be an expert on every phase of a home. How do I know? I'm gutting my home right now in St. Andrews. And my general contractor knows everything about everything that's going on in my home. You are the GM of your country club, and you better become an expert on everything at your club. Enough said. Truth number 5, commit to excellence. Some people are committed to average, some people are committed to mediocre. Peak performers are committed to excellence. When you go to a Beyonce concert, oh my God, is it excellent. When you watch Oprah's show, it is excellent. I just spoke at a Microsoft conference It was 10,000 users of Microsoft, and I did a breakout section, and this conference was excellent, the technology was excellent, and I got a chance to work with Microsoft up close and personal, and oh my God, everything about Microsoft was excellent. I pulled into a Ritz-Carlton one day, and my phone was out of power. So I plugged my cell phone in and went to have breakfast. I'm thinking to myself, I'm at a Ritz-Carlton. Nobody's gonna steal my cell phone. I have a wonderful breakfast. I come out, I valet my car, and my cell phone's gone. So I run to the valet stand and say, hey, man, somebody stole my cell phone. Do you guys lock the car when you park them? Absolutely, we lock the car every single time. Well, if you lock the car, one of your valet guys stole my cell phone. Well, we're not responsible for loss of stolen items. That's the sign right there. I said, yeah, but this is the Ritz-Carlton. Found out later, this company tried to blow me off. They were a company outsourced by the Ritz-Carlton. I called the corporate office and said, hey, man, I got a problem. I got my cell phone stolen. Well, maybe you left it in the restaurant. No, I didn't. Well, maybe you didn't. No, dude. I know 100% for a fact that my cell phone was in the car because when I called it, it went right to voicemail, which means some thief was smart enough to cut my phone off, and I can't do the I Find the Phone app there. And he tried to hide behind this policy of we are not responsible for loss of stolen items. He said, well, Mr. President, I don't know if you realize this, but Ritz-Carlton has a standard, and you are a vendor who serves Ritz-Carlton, so I'm pretty sure they want you to live up to that standard, and I'm sure that all of the 10,000 people who follow my business blog would love to hear about this. He said, huh? I want you to go to walterbond.com and just take a look at my website. I'm always looking for business ideas, and I try to keep them all positive. But every once in a while, I do have to tell a real life story about something bad that happens in business because it is what it is. I wasn't trying to blackmail him. All I was trying to let him know, I'm the wrong dude to blank with. All I want is a phone. That's all I want. Because the contacts I had in that phone were priceless. I just wanted the contacts in my phone. Long story short, he went to my website, he got the idea, he called me back, he said, hey man, go to Verizon, get you a new phone, and send me the bill. Thank you. Do you think the Ritz-Carlton wants people coming to their hotel getting their iPhone stolen? I didn't want anything more than my phone back. And I knew for a fact that it had been stolen. And so my question for you, is your country club committed to excellence? Everybody knows, I don't mean to disrespect the breakers talking about Ritz-Carlton, but for the most part, Ritz-Carlton is known at the top of the food chain for service, am I right or wrong? They have a commitment to excellence. Their commitment is not to okay or average or good. So simply put, peak performers are committed to excellence. Nothing is acceptable when it's less than excellence. Any questions about that? But I have learned that some people's level of excellence is relative to exposure. That's what it is. So if I were you, I would go around and visit other country clubs. Football coaches do it all the time. During spring ball, the coaches at Alabama might go visit Iowa State and vice versa. Why? Because they just want to see how do you run practice? How do you run recruiting? How do you run your offense? How do you run this defense? Because best practices are a great way for you to improve what you do. There's nothing like going to visit another country club to give you ideas on what can improve your country club, but only visit clubs who are committed to excellence. Truth number 6, peak performers think strategically. What is your strategy to improve your club in the next 5 years? If we go about the power of 2, what are the 2 things that you need to improve at your club, and how are you going to improve them? Do you need to get them approved to the board? Is it something you have the autonomy to do? Every year, if I were you, I would strategically figure out how to improve 2 things about my club every single year. And within a 5-year period, your club will be totally different. Peak performers are disciplined. I'm gonna make this real simple. the single most important thing I ever did for my business, I instituted what I call habits and rituals. As a ball player, I shot 500 shots a day, and I became an NBA caliber shooter by being committed and disciplined with the habit and ritual of 500 shots a day. Hired a consultant, brought him in, trying to grow my business. We worked on my brand, we worked on our website, we worked on everything, and then he finally says, well, Walter, how many sales calls a day do you make? I was like, huh? He says, how many sales calls a day do you make? What you talking about, Willis? You know what I mean? He said, wait a minute, you trying to grow a business and you don't ask people to buy? He said, what in the blank are you doing all day? And I was like, I don't know. You cannot grow a business without asking people to buy. Simple sales and marketing is the spine of any company. And so here's what I did. I started making 25 calls a day, every single day, asking people to buy. Let's do the math. 25 calls a day is how many a week in a 5-day week? 125 times 4 is what? 500. 500 times 12 is what? 6,000. By having a discipline of calling 25 people a day, asking them to buy, in 1 year's time, I asked 6,000 people to buy. I want to do 100 keynotes a year. If I ask 6,000 people to buy, what's the likelihood of me doing 100 events? Pretty high, because I don't know what the math is, but 100 out of 6,000 is what percent? I don't even need to be that successful. It's less than that. I mean, that's less than what? What is that? Huh? Yeah, I mean, that's like less than 1%, right? But I turned my business into a mathematical equation by simply having the discipline of asking people to buy. So you guys have country clubs who thrive on people belonging. You need members, right? Hello? Membership drives everything. So my question for you, how many people a day do you ask to buy? Or do you just wait to hope someone calls you? You wait and hope that someone, calls your office or emails you to come view your country club. What kind of outbound marketing and sales do you do to drum up business? Nothing happens in business until something is sold. By me calling 25 people a day, asking them to buy, is the only reason I was able to replace my MBA income. It created such a groundswell. We're still riding the momentum right now, 12 years later. So my question for you, by show of hands, who has a sales strategy for their country club where they call and ask people on a regular basis to buy? Raise your hand. 5 hands go up. What's that? 10% of the audience? So 10% of this group has a consistent sales program. Come on, business people, we're experts. If you're going to be a GM, you have to be an expert in business. If you want to grow your business, you got to get people in the pipeline. If you're not asking people to buy, you don't have nothing in the pipeline. And you're just looking at your membership numbers, and all you see is people leaving through death, financial hardships, and you got to have a way to backfill that by filling your pipeline. Here's the good news. If your pipeline is solid, if your pipeline is full, you can begin to consider upping your golf membership. Simple business. When there's supply and demand, you can charge more money. Does that make sense? If you don't have supply and demand, you got to come up with hustles. I had a country club we belonged to for summertime. Summertime special. I was smart enough to realize, okay, they need some money. So they opened up the club to non-residents for summertime specials. You could come and golf and have all the amenities for X amount of dollars. And the board said yes because the country club needed money. I was smart enough to realize that. But if you have full membership, you don't have to have outsiders coming there beating up your golf course. Are you with me? So if I come back here again and ask you a simple question, How many people here have a consistent sales strategy? I hope the next time I come back that every hand is raised, because it's the equivalent of me going to an NBA player and say, hey man, do you shoot the basketball every day in practice? And they say, no, of course not. You're a quarterback, you don't go out on the practice field and throw the ball around? Oh, who does that? If a football player said that, we would think they're crazy, right? If a basketball player said that, we would think they were nuts. But as a business leader leading your country club, if you don't have a consistent sales strategy, asking people to buy on a daily basis, I'm sorry, you suck. You can't get members if you don't have an outbound strategy of asking people to buy. I mean, who has a sales team? Raise your hand. Do they call people asking to buy? Because if they're not asking people to buy on a regular basis, what in the blank are they doing all day? If you're a salesperson, heck, you should be out selling. Does that make sense to anybody? 2 more and I'm done. Here's something that Craig Martin did a fabulous job with: networking. Networking. You should know every member. You should know every member what they do. You should know what kind of business they have. You should know what age their kids are. Because now if you do a good job networking members amongst themselves, you're going to strengthen the fabric of your community. Country clubs are nothing more than communities. But if the relationships aren't happening inside your community, it's going to be easier for people to leave. Does that make sense? When I joined St. Andrews, they put me in the bulletin and took our picture. And we had a little party Saturday night, and literally everyone at the party came up and said hi. So instantly I felt welcome. Instantly, Craig was there and said, hey, did you meet him? You need to meet him. You need to meet him. Walter, you can do good here. Everybody needs a motivational speaker. Did you meet him? He was at the party matchmaking me after I wrote the $125,000 check. You have got to network, because that's where organic growth comes from. All of your members have friends. I know someone at Old Palm. Your country club is full of people who are successful, but birds of a feather flock together. They have tons of successful friends. So if you do a good job networking, like having an invitational golf tournament or some type of cooking class or something cool to invite non-members in, that's a great way for your club to get exposure and to do some good old network marketing to build your organization. I wish I had more time to teach networking, but everyone you meet knows 300 people. Remember that. So if you do a good job connecting with them, they'll give you access to their 300 people. So if you don't do a good job networking, even within your club, they're not going to give you access to their 300 people. So if you're a GM, you should connect with every person who's already a member of your country club, because it's easier to get spin-offs and referrals for them than to go out and make cold calls. But if you do both, you're going to be very, very successful. Last thing, then I'm done. Truth number 9, be accountable. I told you guys my father called me on the phone, and he would make me accountable. He would always ask me, son, why don't you play? Why not? Do you think you're an NBA player? My father reminded me of what I said I was going to do. And so I'm very thankful that I had someone in my home that always held me accountable. So here's my final challenge for you. Because accountability is not a natural thing. It is really tough for us to be accountable. It's the human flaw. It happened way back in the Garden of Eden. God asked Adam, did you eat from that tree? You know what Adam said? It was that woman you sent to me. Think about how elaborate his defense mechanism was when he had no other interaction with anyone but Eve. It was a natural instinct for him to deny accountability. It was that woman that you sent to me. In other words, it's not my fault. It's her fault, and it's your fault because you're the one that put me to sleep and sent it to me. Adam instinctively had an elaborate defense mechanism because that is a human failing. It is tough for us to be accountable. When a little kid, 3 years old, breaks something, what's the first thing they say? Adam, did you break that glass? It wasn't me, Mommy. There's nobody else in the room, man. The weight of responsibility sometimes is tough for people to bear. If you ask any marriage counselor, a marriage is not going to turn and get better until that spouse can say, you know what, I got to get better. What happens in marriage counseling? The first 30 minutes, they are kind of yelling at each other and blaming each other. Well, you don't do this, and you don't do that. Well, you don't do this, you don't do that. Well, you don't do this, you don't do this. Your mother, your father, your mother. And eventually say, you know what, I got to get better. You know what, I work so much, I don't spend quality time with you. That's my fault. Well, you know, I do, I'm busy, I travel a lot, and yeah, I do need to take some time and spend. Until we become accountable, no relationships will improve, would you agree? So peak performers have the ability to say, you know what, I lost the game. You know what, I made the turnover. That's my bad, my fault. Final thought and I'm done. When I played for the Dallas Mavericks, we were one of the worst teams in the history of the NBA. Every turnover, everything that went wrong, we pointed, we blamed fingers. We had no accountability. Won 13 games. I got a chance to play for a winning team, went to the Utah Jazz, and as soon as practice started, oh, my fault, my bad. My fault, my bad. My fault, my bad. My fault, my bad. Before I knew it, I was my fault, my bad. My fault, my bad. Accountability is how you strengthen teams. Accountability is how you improve. In fact, you cannot have performance improvement without accountability. It is absolutely impossible. When my coach said you can't run, you can't jump, you can't dribble, you can't shoot, and you can't rebound, I didn't get defensive. I said, Coach, you're right. But next year, I'll be your most improved player. So as we close today's program, I want you to be accountable. What did I say today that made you go, ooh, I got to get better. I got to get more positive. I got to start telling people what's right with them and not what's wrong with them. Well, maybe I need to be more likable. I don't hire likable people. I don't even smile. Here's the reality. Some people brighten up a room when they enter, and some people brighten up a room when they leave. In the service-based industry, here's what I want to leave you with. If you screw up everything else that I talked about today, hopefully you didn't, the one thing you can't screw up is having likable people working for you. To me, that's a no-brainer, non-negotiable. In any service-based industry, you gotta have people that are likable, that can brighten up a room, and who don't communicate with people, who connect. If you go to any barbershop or any salon, the top stylist at that salon always has two qualities. They do a great job on your hair, but they also typically have the best personality in the shop, if you notice that. My wife gets her hair done by a guy named Russell. My wife loves Russell. I hate Russell's guts. His salon is the furthest away from our house. He's $150 every time she sits in that chair, but that's not my problem. Russell's smart. He's figured out my wife loves to talk about travel. Every time he gets my wife in that chair, all they do is talk about travel. He does a good job on her hair, and she loves the experience because she loves to talk about travel. He asked my wife, well, have you guys done the Disney cruise? She says, no. He says, oh my God, you've not done the Disney cruise? How old are the kids? Well, the kids are 12, 10, 12, and 14. Russell says, you better hurry up before they're too old. He had my wife rushing home to book a $15,000 cruise with a rat on the side of the boat. My wife loves Russell. I hate Russell's guts because he's smart. He provides a great product and a great service. He does a great job on my wife's hair, but that's not enough. Every time she goes to the salon, every time she plays golf, every time she plays cards, every time she has lunch, every time she plays tennis, every time she goes to the spa, everything she does at the country club, she has an absolute great experience. I've been at the country club for a month now. We are doing a total gut job. I love the club so much, we wake up in the morning in Miami, sleeping at my father-in-law's house, and I drive all the way to St. Andrews in Boca. I work in my house all day, go to the club, eat some cookies at 3 o'clock. I figured out the time of everything when they drop the coffee and the bagels and they bring out the cookies. I figured out the whole system, and then when it's time to go to bed, I drive back to Miami and go to bed. That's the life I'm living right now as I gut this house out in St. Andrews. And every time I've gone and got bagel, loved it. Every time I've gone and have coffee, loved it. Every time I ate dinner, loved it. Every time I played 9 holes, loved it. Every time and everything I've done, I've absolutely loved it. And as a result, I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon because I believe that the country club I belong to has figured it out. Now, you don't tell Craig I've been bragging about him. I don't want him to get a big head. But they're doing something right there. And Old Palm is nice. I visited Old Palm. We just wanted to live in Boca and get a little closer to Miami because my wife's from Miami. Old Palm's in the conversation, but Boca kind of won out. But think about your country club. Do your members talk about your club the same way I talk about mine? But more importantly, do your kids talk about you as a daddy the same way I talk about mine? Do your kids talk about you as a mama the same way I talk about mine? I want to give you something free, and I promise you. I want you to take out your phone, and I'm going to give you my free ebook. I got 31 of these. I only gave you 9, and I want you to give all 31. Then I want you to go somewhere and compare you to all 31 truths and be accountable and honest with yourself on what you need to improve in order to be a peak performer at the highest level. I want you to go to walterbond.com/31. walterbond.com/31. I don't have it on the screen, sorry. Go to walterbond.com/31. We're going to email you my ebook, The 31 Truths to Boost Peak Performance. It's a quick read, and all I want you to do is take a look at the 31 truths and to see how well you execute them. And Craig Martin networked well with me, but I'm going to tell you what was most impressive. He executed the law of reciprocity, which is one of my truths. Before I signed and became a member of St. Andrews, he blessed me by connecting me with Beth. That law of reciprocity was powerful. That law of reciprocity endeared me to Craig Martin even more. And so in a lot of cases, he executed several of my 31 truths. And that's a big reason why I decided to join his club. I've been there a month, and hopefully I keep talking about it the same way 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. But I tell you one thing, the law of reciprocity is one of my truths. He executed well. So stop updating your cell phone, stop updating the software on your laptop, and start updating you. Because how you operate is much more important than your cell phone, it's much more important than your laptop, and my 31 truths is a great way for you to operate better. In this left hallway, we're going to have my book available. It's titled All But Stink, How to Live Your Best Life and Eliminate Excuses. But I also have a CD series called Think, Execute, Dominate. Think the right way, execute good daily habits. It will position you to dominate. I highly recommend you buy that series and turn your car into a classroom, because I'm going to go deeper into how you should think. I'm going to go deeper into how you should execute. And most importantly, I believe we've cracked a code that can help you be positioned to dominate. We're going to have those books available in the corner. That's my lovely wife, Antoinette. Raise your hand. She just walked in, so I'm sure she's been doing some mommy stuff with the kids. But come say hi, give us a hug, take pictures. I want to hear about your club, because I can network you with some of my friends around Florida. I got a lot of friends around Florida, and I always tell my athlete friends to join country clubs. That's the most important thing I ever did to transform myself. We joined a country club in Minnesota, and I got a chance to hang around successful business people, and I'm telling you one thing. It's the most important thing that I did, I believe, that started getting me thinking differently and being more successful as I transitioned out of sports and got into the real world. So we got a book, we got a DVD, we have CDs, download the ebook, and hopefully, if nothing else, you got a chance to meet Walter Bond, And I'm hoping in your heart of hearts, say, you know what? I like them. Thank you.